You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Turn After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Turn After Show.
Hey guys, what's up? Tell it real quiet like it is.
Let's whisper during the entire podcast.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Turn After Show at AFTERBUZZ TV, your one and only spot for after show entertainment. I am your host, Captain Ryan Hooks. We are here for episode number 4, Eternity How Long. Thanks for tuning in. We got an amazing panel here today. Joining me on the panel, Lieutenant Megan Salinas.
Hi, everybody.
Out of the pickle jar, Captain Joyce.
At your service.
Beside me, Dillon Chance, unranked.
I don't even have a title? Man, this
Listen,
is horrible.
You were
as
a
we've
major.
learned in this week, you can lose your title real fast.
Real fast.
So this is TBD.
It's okay, I'm a spy.
He's a spy, and we'll see what happens. We're gonna go from there.
Well, maybe you can work your way back up to being major.
Yeah, you know, bottom of the totem pole.
Maybe
I'll work my way back up.
maybe a field commission for killing somebody.
Done.
We'll see what happens.
I just realized you are Captain Hooks.
I
Whoa!
have been Captain Hooks for 2 decades, so I never have to change my rank. Captain Hooks all the time. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Let's talk about Turn. So episode 4. What'd you guys think so far?
I liked this one. I was a little disappointed that we don't get Robert Rogers again in this episode.
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row. But this was a good episode, and it was a very different take on, what we've seen. It was kind of a focus back again on the small town and the goings-on in this small town, and how what would possibly be used to incite this town to rebellion. And so that was very interesting to see, and see how that was turned on its head.
Yeah, I agree. I liked that almost everybody in this episode, all the characters were conflicted in some way, and it was nice to see, well, not nice, but it was good to see the conflict that Richard, Abe's dad, was kind of going through. I mean, he was so unstaggering in his faith with the redcoats and stuff. It was interesting to see his character change.
Yeah, this was a good one for character development between the townspeople and Abe and his father and whatnot. You know, we missed Simcoe. No Simcoe. What's he doing? Where's
Simcoe
he
this
at?
week, yeah.
Up to no good. And anyways, yeah, it was just, I liked it. I liked the character development. You see Abe getting a little more ballsy. Didn't know how else to say that. And he's threatening people. He's getting in there. It's looking good.
Yeah, I agree. That was a big turning point, because I think this small town conflict is what's going to drive the character development of Abe, and we're going to get him, this is what's going to cause him that breaking point, where this is going to push him to become the spy that we're going to hope he is. So speaking of Richard and Simcoe, big shout outs to our friends on Twitter, Kevin McNally and Sammy Roken.
That's so
Thanks,
cool.
guys, for all your support. We appreciate you guys so much for tweeting at us and all that. And also, Simcoe is going to be calling into the show here in a couple weeks.
Ooh.
So stay tuned. We will have more details on the official date when that happens. But he'll be calling in live from merry old England.
So exciting.
I know, it's going to be, we can grill him about being a jerk and how much we like him.
He's probably
and
the
hate him at the
nicest
same
man on
time.
earth.
Yeah, probably such a
In
nice
real
guy.
He's probably so nice in real life.
Well, we'll find out here soon
find out.
enough.
Yeah.
Soon enough. All right. So let's talk this week first off about our good friend Caleb, because I know that's
Caleb.
why not start with Caleb, because that's what men
He's still
do.
my favorite.
He was barely even in this week's episode, and he's still everyone's
Yeah.
favorite.
Well, they were still doing important stuff.
They were doing
yeah.
important stuff. So he and Ben were trying to smuggle in the letter that Abe sent them. Had the information about the Hessian soldiers and how they were going to be active throughout the winter time. And this was information that they thought was really relevant. The general burned the note and tossed it.
General Scott, get it together, Scott.
Where is his foresight?
Well, he did that because he wouldn't tell him the name of his trusted source, and he's like, "Oh, if you don't trust me, man, can't trust you, can't trust this guy."
I really liked that moment, though. Not that Scott burned the letter, but I really liked that they didn't sell Abe out,
Right.
because that's kind of, again, the point of aspiring is you limit the amount of information coming in and out. And it shows that even though they're not being 100% honest with Abe, they're being as true to him as they can, and they're honoring what they promised him.
Even if Simcoe's still alive, but
They're
it's a whole other
trying. They're
story.
trying their best.
I like that they didn't stop at the burned letter. They found another way to get that letter to Washington, and I love how they were justifying it. What was Caleb's quote? It isn't treason if it's for a good reason.
It ain't treason if there's a reason.
Yeah.
If there's a good reason, yeah.
I
Oh
even
my
wrote
gosh.
that down. Yeah.
That's like one of my daily quotes.
It ain't.
You and Caleb are like,
I know.
BFFs.
Simpatico.
Dylan's over
So
here causing
this is why you're
treason.
not a major anymore.
You're gonna be in the pickled jar before too long if you're not careful.
see how it feels.
Yeah. I'll
be
shrink
alright.
you down a little bit.
Don't worry.
But no, and I like too that they didn't give up on this as a way to try to figure out how to get the information across. And I thought that was a really good plan to smuggle it in. Basically, it's like Congress. I mean, look, this is the future of Congress.
Oh my God!
Coattailing
That
bill
is
information.
perfect. They do that. They
Right?
sneak them on at the bottom of it.
Man, here's
people only read
Obamacare
the
just
top.
sliding in the back of something else.
Man. Well, they did it with that Monsanto Act too. Ugh.
Listen, we're not going to get into the
let's
politics.
not do
Yeah,
this.
We'll be here all night. But yeah, it was a great idea, a great concept, and it ended up working. There was a little bit of drama as he read out the letter.
I got nervous thinking that he was going to
Flip the page.
but it kind of was a testament to how I forgot what his name was, the guy that burned the letter.
General Scott.
General
Scott. It's kind of a testament to how nonchalant he is about all that stuff. He's so easy. It's so easy for him to just kind of disregard.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So
This is okay. That's fine.
him not turning the page and kind of not reading past the first page was totally.
It's like nowadays, like when people on Facebook just read the title of an article and then comment all about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what-
They
Read it.
share it without
He's
reading
like
it.
choosing to be ignorant without knowing.
He's got more important
doing
things to
that.
do.
He's a busy
To
man.
read a full report.
I have
read
people for
every
that. I have
scout
people for
report.
that.
Yeah.
It's, not to pull from The Simpsons too much because I do that in my everyday life, but I was elected to lead, not to read.
That's right. Did you put your TPS reports in the right order or anything?
Did you
new
miss
cover
the
page?
memo?
I'll get to that memo. Send it right
Well,
over.
I was terrified actually when he was reading it out because I thought at that moment he was totally calling their bluff because he's reading it
Yeah.
out loud.
And the way he was reading it.
And it looked kind of like the way it was shot, it kind of looked like he was reprimanding them, wasn't he?
Well-
So I was terrified. I was like, oh shoot, they are in so much trouble.
And they did that little dramatic tease where one
You could just see the line across the
sticking
top.
out.
It's like sweat drops.
But it worked. And we got so excited this week. All of us were in there watching the show, and they showed Washington's desk. That was
I
enough.
was really hoping to see Washington. In the previews, did we see the back of Washington?
It looked like they were on the Delaware.
Right?
That to me was what that looked like.
I'm really curious to see how they're going to portray him. And
Washington's
who's going
back.
to portray him?
Well, and it was really funny what Caleb said, of course he's going to read what we wrote. What else does he have to do? And again, just seeing all the letters that were just completely covering his desk. It's just another thing that the show really does to show, again, how kind of larger than life General Washington is and how much responsibility he is and how much the rebellion is really relying upon him. And just like, what else does he have to do? Everything. He is the
Everything.
rebellion.
Yeah.
He is the rebellion. But yeah, so wrapped up in a nice little package for us. So hopefully we'll find out more if the letter makes it or what happens with all that coming up in the future weeks. So let's move right along.
Back to the town?
No, we're not going back to town yet.
Oh, man.
No, we're
There's so
saving
much
that for
stuff
the
happening.
That's the best part. We got to
That's
save
where
Okay,
Dylan
save
feels
it.
the
safe.
meat and the potatoes are for the end. We're just tossing the salad and having some pickles. We're fine. All right, so we're going to talk about our good friend Major John Andre.
Oh, John Andre. It's so great to have him back.
He was our creepy fill-in this week. So no Simcoe to be weird. So now we've got John Andre
Him
just
and Hewlett.
being up to no
They were
good.
creepy.
Yeah, Hewlett is pretty good and creepy.
Yeah.
he is.
So.
But how smart though, with what John Andre had planned, he had this whole facade that they had going on.
It's like a plot within a plot.
Yeah.
It's like Inception. We're gonna tip into our dreams.
Plotception.
Yeah, I think a couple of episodes ago, I thought that she was going to be I thought she was a spy working with the rebels to learn stuff from
Right,
him.
Philomena.
But she's actually, Philomena's actually a spy for him. So that turned.
Well, there's still plenty of
Yeah, I
time in
was
this
gonna say
season.
there's
still a
She could.
chance.
We've already seen that she has great acting ability with
true.
the show that she put on.
That was hilarious.
That was probably my favorite moment this entire episode was just seeing
throwing
her
down her
screaming and
cards.
she's just like collecting all her winnings,
she's
going
winning.
no. But we've seen that she's a good actress, and she could very well be playing John Andre in the same way that she played General Charles Lee.
I think this is a testament, though, to what a lot of the plot has to do with women, where they have a lot of times talked down the power of women, but yet at the same time, we saw in this episode, Philomena had the huge influence on everything that happened with her and that situation, and she's gonna play a bigger influence, I think, later, plus the situation with Mary and all the women, how these 6 women started a riot, essentially.
Yeah, these women incited the town almost to the point of revolt. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're gonna see that more with Anna here in the coming weeks as well when she returns, because we didn't have her all this week as well. Nobody went to the bar this week. They were busy revolting.
Revolting.
They were having an eternity of how long.
Quilting parties, digging up.
We'll get there.
I don't know about
Save
you
it.
guys. I have alcohol in all my quilting parties.
I mean, let's giggle and talk. So, what did you guys think about Charles Lee in that whole situation?
I think it's very interesting what John Andre has planned. I thought it was funny to see General Lee, basically walk right into this trap and play right into their hands exactly how John Andre was expecting it. I don't know what to think about him as a character yet. Right now he just kind of seems like a pawn in Andre's scheme, and that's exactly what he's planning on. Andre wants to build him up to be this great hero and send him back to the rebels so that he can take over for General Washington and then eventually bring about the surrender of the rebels to reconcile the crown and the colonies.
He's giving him this kind of false power, offering some sort of false deference. And
But basically, that's going to allow Andre to cause the surrender, which is going to make him look awesome, because he's now going to be a lord or something amazing if that goes down the way he plans.
He'll have ended a war.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Nope. I
Spoiler
mean, maybe.
alert.
We don't know.
This plan doesn't
what
work.
are you basing your
This is
spoilers
fiction
on?
adjacent, so it could work
Yeah.
for a time being. We'll find out in coming weeks.
Unless they still hold the power and we just don't know it.
Deep down inside.
Nope, never mind.
As we're sitting here drinking tea. Damn you, British
This was
spies.
put here.
No, and the thing that I like and dislike about John Andre and also Hewlett, I feel like they're kind of like the stereotypical villain British soldier. Like both of them are sort of like conniving, and same with Simcoe. That's just sort of like, I think as Americans, that's our stereotyped major.
Well, prior to this week, I didn't feel that way about
Right, and
Hewlett.
I haven't either.
I love Hewlett because, he just seemed somebody who was very prim and proper, very the rules are the rules. And I like characters like that, flawed as they may be. I like seeing characters like that. So when I see Hewlett, I'm like, oh, I can immediately connect with that character because I like that trope. But this one, it felt a little bit more, like you said, a little bit more stereotypical. But to be fair, there is rationale behind his plan in this one, and we can get to that one.
And that's what I mean. Like, I sort of, it's like at the same time, I really do like it. Like, I'm like, oh, yes, that's great, because you can always count on them to have that rationale where they, most of them were gentlemen or lords or some kind of power. That's why they have these high-ranking titles. And they have always been groomed to be gentlemen, and they have class, and they will go out about a thing a certain way all the time because that's how they've been taught.
I will say that I don't think John Andre was a stereotypical redcoat this time around. I think it's a brilliant strategy. It's a strategy that doesn't involve, it doesn't involve a lot of bloodshed. Obviously there's still going to be a lot of battles and everything like that. But it's a way to kind of appease people without actually appeasing them.
And if it doesn't work, no one will know.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. He's not putting himself in a situation where he's going to end up dead or in trouble. So
it was a very smart plan. I don't know.
I thought so too. And going back to seeing his character kind of different from before, it just plays again on like the development of characters and how he just became this more ruthless leader, but again, not for a reason that we have to hate,
Exactly. It's something that we as viewers can understand, as opposed to something that we're like, you're evil, and there's absolutely no reason behind it.
He's a tactical villain.
Exactly.
Which are the best. Tactical villains are the best.
Things could go wrong, of course, and I know that Richard did mention that he has military inexperience.
With Hewlett.
Hewlett, yeah. Hewlett has military inexperience, and who knows that maybe his plan will just go completely wrong. He's not foreseeing what could happen with this.
Further down the line.
With what's going to happen with the townspeople and how he's trying to control their hearts and minds, if you will.
Yeah.
So
I like to see the town become a more violent character in all this.
Yes, pitchforks, torches.
Yeah.
And so far, like, this hasn't really been that kind of show. Like, you
Yeah.
expect a show, you know, about the American Revolution to have more violence and fighting, and it's been very much plots and plans and limited fighting. You know, occasionally here and there we've had some gunshots and 1 or 2 people getting killed, but for the most part, we have had a very tame war.
Well, because it's not about the show isn't about life on the front lines. It's about these spies, and you know, there's a lot of plotting and a lot of talking and a lot of whispering and a lot of conversations that go into spy work. You know, there's the occasional. There's violence, obviously, because this is a war. But again, that's not the focus of this show. And I'm okay with that not being the focus of this show, because what they give us instead is really interesting and really, you know, again, we get a lot of character development.
Yeah, and they talk too about the town in Setauket and how far away it is as well. And I think that is being represented then, because if there's nothing nearby to threaten them, then why would they need that? So they're going to continue to not have any battles there, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Until there's a riot.
Well, that's the whole idea with the tombstones, but keep going.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's where I was going.
Wait until we get to the town. I don't want to break into it yet.
No,
Saving the meat and the potatoes.
Okay. Before we get into the town, we'll go there next, I promise.
Okay.
We're moving right along to the town. First off, I want to talk about iTunes.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of the show when we talk
do it.
about the iTunes. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate you guys being here and listening to us, tweeting at us, giving us questions and comments and concerns, and loving the show, because we love the show. That's why we're here. So the best thing you can do to help us out is to go on iTunes, check out the show, give us a 5-star rating, tell us what you think, leave us comments. I don't have an iPhone, so I didn't read any of the comments on iTunes to read to people this week. Did anyone else? Anybody? Yep.
I have a BlackBerry.
I don't think any of us.
We've
have
all
iPhones.
sold out on you,
not that
Apple.
either. Yeah.
We are. But iTunes is
Sorry.
awesome because I do download my music there and I listen to all the podcasts from AfterBuzz TV. So that's what you can do. Check us out. And also, if you want to go on YouTube and leave us comments, I always am on YouTube.
Yeah.
We'll do shout outs for iTunes next week. Well, we promise we'll go and take a
We'll
look.
prepare
Yes,
for those.
we will shout that out.
Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like.
Tell us anything you want.
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite color.
Oh,
Please.
That
Please tell him.
pertinent to the
Everyone
show.
tweet him your favorite.
That'd be awesome, actually. I would love that. I would
Blue or
reply to
red,
everybody.
guys. Blue or red? Let us know.
I love when I get messages on Twitter. Like, I Twitter at everybody all the time. I was like, hey, what's going on? And just have conversations. And so I like to live tweet during the shows as well when we're watching it. It's a specific time here. But anyway, iTunes, all that. Also, if you want to watch more of the AfterBuzz shows besides iTunes, you can also get them on our AfterBuzz app, which is awesome.
It's great.
Because it has all the shows. You can favorite them. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can
So
go
you
to
can
him.
stay up to date.
You can favorite them. You can go to them so quickly. Last night, I was burning through a bunch of my favorites list, just checking some stuff out.
It's so much easier than like searching on YouTube. Because
Yeah,
it's like
it's way
it shows
easier.
you the newest one right on top.
It's great.
As opposed to like
and
the number
numbered
of views.
too, so you know.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
So you know we're on episode 4.
Hey!
Eternity, how long? So I've got one more thing to tell everybody at home before we go any farther, before we talk about the town.
Do it.
All right, let's talk about Amex. American Express. Roya, tell us what you got.
Oh, well, hi, guys. I have a lovely thing for you. Let's listen to it, shall we?
Oh, yes.
My name is Yvonne Saravia, and I am a home health aide. My credit score was very high. It was like 700 something. Then I had like a hiccup in my finances. Everything just crashed. But I don't crawl under a rock and cry. It takes baby steps to get back. So that's what I am doing.
With American Express Serve, you have a full-service prepaid account that helps you handle your money simply and affordably. There's no credit check. You can pay your bills online and reload cash for free at over 15,000 locations, all for $1 a month, and all backed by the 24/7 service of American Express. This is what membership is. This is what membership does.
Get started with an American Express Serve card at CVS Pharmacy or Family Dollar today. Terms and restrictions apply. Go to serve.com for more details.
Okay, so before we talk about Abe and Richard, no, I'm just kidding. We can talk about Abe and Richard now. I know Dylan's over here like jumping out of his chair.
move.
He's about to walk out.
I'm out.
Let's talk about. So this is the meat and potatoes of the plot this week. Was Abe and Richard's big ordeal in the town?
Yes.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to jump in. I feel like you had you was burning this desire.
I was making sure you didn't have anything else to say.
Dylan, go ahead. Why don't you just lead us in?
Okay, let's do it.
Done.
I really liked the start when they were talking. They were standing over the gravestone. It was a father, son. They were standing over the other son/brother gravestone, and he was about to read him a quote, and he says, "No, that wasn't his favorite quote. He really liked this part." And
Liked Galatians.
Exactly.
Corinthians,
and he's like, "Well, you knew him better because you were a brother." But it was a real touching moment because even his wife chimes in, and she's like, "I barely met him, barely knew him, but he was a great guy." And just everything they say leads him up to be like, he must have been a great guy.
Yeah. And Abe even mentioned that when their mother died, when they were really young,
that was good.
That his brother was able to comfort him by saying, whatever sprouts from the dirt is a sign she'll always be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And Abe is using that now to talk about, Thomas's passing and say that, in this way, he will always be with us still.
And it was good because I think that moment bonded the father and son a little bit more because you're seeing them. It seemed like they were tugging at each other for a while, and now they're getting closer and closer. But then they still tug. But
this week definitely, I felt like there was a lot of growth in their character development and them getting closer because Abe really kind of went to bat for his father this week. And really, he's like, listen, I know this is a terrible idea, and I'm trying to help you, and this is what you should do. So
it's really tough to say. I think their back and forth is going to continue in the series just with the way this episode ended. But yes, this intro scene was a really, really touching moment, and we see that at the end of the day, no matter the politics, they're still a family.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his favorite passage as well from Galatians.
No, he's just saying. Come to think of it.
Come to think of it.
I like
that
Galatians
was mine as well.
I too prefer Galatians.
Going back to Abe and Richard's relationship, I'm glad that Abe was, as much as his father's attitude towards him can discourage him and make him feel like Thomas was the favorite, and he probably was. But I liked Abe's persistence in ensuring his father that, he's trying to help him. He's there to defend him. He's there for his dad, no matter what he decides to do. Or he's trying to make sure he makes the right decision. So I liked that growth in their relationship.
Yeah, when they're arguing, he's like, "I'm not defending the rebels, I'm defending you. Like, you're what's important to me."
And I think too the thing that I see a lot in these episodes is the effort that Abe is putting in, because every son wants approval from his father, and everyone wants that, especially from parents. And since they don't have anyone else really, I mean, his brother's dead, and he has a wife that he doesn't really like. And he's kind of forced to marry, and their mother's gone, so that he doesn't have anybody that he can really try to get approval from and that he looks up to. And so I feel like he's really, really trying to get that approval at all costs, even if it's kind of putting himself. And I wonder if later down the line that might cause a problem. There might be something that he'll do where he's trying to please his father that's going to cause more issues than it's worth.
He's going to have to make a choice. It's going to come down to that.
Definitely.
Yeah, eventually, I feel like there's going to be some sort of irrevocable, if I could talk, irrevocable rift between the two, between either Abe and his friends, the rebels that he's, fighting for, or with his father, who is his family. And I think he's probably going to lean more towards the rebels.
Dude, who doesn't choose Caleb in that situation?
Yeah, easy, every day.
Every day, all day, because that's what bearded men do. We stand up for each other.
Yes.
Grow a beard. Epic, if you grow a beard, you can get promoted.
Oh, all right. Done.
Just keep it growing.
Already well on your way.
Yeah. Just keep it going.
I shaved 2 days ago.
Back on the topic at hand. So the major point of this plot here is that Major Hewlett wants to move the cannons into a position that's better for the defense of the town. They need a garrison, they need a quarry to support this, and they need to kind of bury the cannons. So his idea is to basically break up the tombstones, use them as rubble and rock to help support the cannons so that when they're fired, they're not going to break, and also make a shield.
It wasn't necessarily to break them up, to use as rubble. He wanted them to use as full tombstones to sort of, shield, but intact, because of what he says at the end of the episodes. It's hard to fire upon a tombstone. So... because it means a lot to people. It's sacrilege to sort of desecrate
He's hoping
them.
that the other people won't fire at them.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, if it's that hard to give them up, it's going to be that hard for people to fire upon them as well.
I don't know, though. You know, I mean, I know what he's trying to say.
That's his rationale,
but, like,
yeah.
You get up there and you're in the middle of a war and you're like, what are those things guarding the cannons? Tombstones? We surrender. Like, you're just not going to shoot them. No, shoot them.
Well, and that's with the potential shielding of them. Usually when they had cannons in this period, they didn't really like fire and explode. They kind of skipped the cannonball to try to take out people's legs, so they're hoping that they can cause damage by shooting at them, and these will hopefully shield the cannonballs.
Yeah.
At least one.
Or two. What was the one on limestone?
Limestone and
Granite,
yeah. Granite and slate was the other. The slate will break right apart, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, right apart.
Yeah.
Go on. I felt like you had something to say.
I was going to say, going back to what Hewlett was saying, how it would be really difficult for anyone to fire to Tombstone. I feel like for the rebels, and I'm not a huge history person, and watching this I'm learning a lot of stuff, but from what I think would be the perspective of the rebels is they're kind of fighting for the people and for their freedom. So they would have that sympathy, and they probably wouldn't surrender, but they would probably find another way to go around not having to shoot in that direction.
And there's also the fear of sacrilege too. You know, Richard brings it up. The point, you know, above all else, there's God, and if you're doing something that's an act of desecration against God, you know, that takes precedent above all else. That's not a sin like it's not like breaking the law. That's committing a sin, and that, you know, again.
That's the worst.
God is a little bit higher than the laws and constructs of man.
And that's where we get the title this week as well. Eternity, how long?
And that's the funny thing about religion is no matter what side you're on, you're fighting for God. So that's weird. I mean, it's true.
Well, not
the rebels are gonna be like, we're fighting for God. The other guys are like, we're fighting for God.
Not in the same way. You're making it sound like it's a religious feud, and that's not it.
No, but they both use it to instill fear and control over their people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, on both sides.
On both sides. I was seeing if this was going to get heated up here. This felt like a religious battle was about to start.
No. Just saying that's how it, like, he's saying, like, Richard is preaching saying this is, God wants you to sacrifice and, put what you hold most dearest first. But I bet on the other side, they're saying the same thing,
Well, Hewlett made the point earlier that God, he quoted Romans and said that, the powers that be were elected by God, and that our king in turn was put there by God, and that he was put in his place by their king. Mm-hmm. And so, kind of inferring that his word is the word of God, and that's where we get a lot of problems. It's like, you're going on a little bit of a power trip here.
There a little bit.
That's really stretching it. But yeah, it is one of those things where religion is used to, as a means to justify an end. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that can be used in really not so morally sound ways.
Right.
So.
And I think, too, with talking about the people in the town a little bit, too, this is still early on in the revolution in the aspect of the time frame that it's taken place. And at this point, a lot of people, weren't really in on either side. They were just defending their homes, and they just wanted to keep living their lives, and they wanted things to stay the same.
Yeah, the townspeople.
The townspeople, because they haven't, the conflict hadn't escalated to the point that it does in the 1780s. And I think that we're seeing that with the people. They don't really care about the war. They don't really care about what's going on. They just really want to keep living their lives.
They don't really want to take sides, or they're not interested in that. They just want to have peace amongst themselves.
Well, and really, if we're looking at it numerically, only about a third of Americans were actually rebels. Everybody else was just kind of like
there.
Yeah, they were either loyal to the British, or they were just like, we just want to go about our lives.
Or if they were loyal, they just said they're loyal and didn't do anything at all, and just kind of kept living their lives like normal. So
exactly.
Rebel. Rebel. Yeah. I would have been a rebel.
I do want to see the town come together more and become more of a character in the show. I thought it was really cool to see all
like
of them as a
collective
unit.
town.
Yeah, so we have Martin, the new apparent voted leader.
I like Martin. I like him.
Hey, he was just trying to protect the tombstones,
I know where he's coming from.
Right.
I understood.
Some people probably looked at him like, oh, that guy's a jerk. But
I actually liked Lucinda. A little bit. At first, I was really annoyed because Mary had told when Abe had asked her not to. So at first I'm super annoyed. But then, you know, when we actually get to see Lucinda and Richard, like, sit down and have a chat together, I loved her. She's like, look, this is a bad plan and you know it, and I'm not doing anything to support a really bad plan.
You figured this out yourself.
And I love that she just let him talk for like 5 minutes before she was like, no.
No thanks.
The whole time.
You're not convincing me.
And again, she is a woman in the show who displayed some sort of power, or she made Richard sway his decision, or made him think about what he was going to do.
And actually, this is really subtle, but he said that, you know, the tombstones would only be used with the consent of the heads of the family, and he went to her for consent. That says a lot about her as a matriarch. Like, he didn't go to, like, her grandson or her son or whoever would be, you know, considered the head of the family after her husband passed away. He went to her.
Yeah.
And so I think that speaks volumes about her and her character, even if we don't end up seeing much of her in the show. I really liked that.
I wonder if they have some sort of system in place where they have elders in the town.
The town elders.
Like, I wondered if she was maybe like one of the town elders that had been in, you know, had been there, and that was part of the reason he went to her, because she was influential, regardless of female or male.
Well, they didn't say anything about like a group of elders or anything like that, but he said specifically that her family was held in really high regard.
Which means they've probably been there the longest.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about, when he was talking about the tombs that wouldn't be chosen, there were the original townfolk tombs that wouldn't be touched.
That was probably her.
And it might have been part of her family, yeah, or families that have been there since the town was started.
Right.
Because we don't really have a semblance of history of the town in the aspect they haven't talked about it.
It doesn't seem like it's a town that's really, maybe it's old, but it's always been small, because in the entire history of this town, there are only 147
that's what I was getting to, the
tombstones.
147 tombstones. So it's either hasn't been there a very long time, or it's always been small and people leave.
Well, there's a lot of old people walking around too, which is weird for back then. I mean, it's true.
I was thinking that when Richard was drunk, right? When he was reading all those books and everything.
Oh.
It's like he's old.
He's not that old.
Well,
he's old for back then. That's real old.
Well, life was very, very short back then.
Yeah.
So it is.
And harsh.
It really was. Yeah, like the fact that.
I mean, if you were like 30, you were an old man. Jeez.
Well, yeah, if you made it to your 20s and you weren't married, like a young lady would be considered an old maid.
Yeah, she's a spinster. All right, let's talk some more about this plot that's going on here with Richard. And basically, you know, we see that he has a decision to make where he gives him the option. You can either let Appleton pick the tombs, or you can pick them. It doesn't really matter. They're going to get picked either way.
Well, yeah, and he gives him till morning.
Well, he ends up getting 3 days.
Well, he gave him 3 days, but then when the town like showed up at their doorstep, he gave him till morning.
And I get the idea of him wanting to do it himself, because he was thinking, okay, if I just let him do it, the whole town's gonna go crazy. Everyone's gonna get murdered. This is gonna suck. Maybe if I do it, I can take the heat. I can ration with people.
And they know
reason
him
with
and
people.
trust him.
And also, he can I think he said pick people that would make the least amount of fuss about it.
Yeah.
So then they would not, maybe people that didn't necessarily care.
But he did, with those rules, make it to where his family didn't have to get picked. Which
a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
if he was going to do it, he should have probably offered up the first one,
you would
he
do the
turns out
same,
to,
I think.
Exactly.
Anyone in his position would do the same, would accept that immunity.
Yeah, but it's a little. But he made the immunity. That's different than accepting it.
Hewlett put that on the table as like the very first part of the terms and conditions
like,
is that your family is exempt, of course.
Well, right, but then he wrote like these town exemptions that he was going to tell to everyone, and that to me was kind of hypocritical to be like, well, my family falls into these list of special.
Yeah, no
things
women,
that I
no
made.
children, no historic elders, no people that have died in battle.
Yeah, he was trying to make it so that it seemed less shady that his family was exempt.
So basically, men between the ages of 18 and 34 who died.
But then
for no reason.
Yeah, it's a town of what 147 tombstones, and he's like ruling out women, children, and people who died.
There's 138 tombstones gone.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
There are literally only 10 left. So by process of elimination, this is what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe that's what he was trying to do, is trying to eliminate all these categories so that there could only be 10 that they were taking to use as these tombstones. I wonder how many they ended up getting, because we saw more than half the town assuming that was all the time.
I bet they're going to use all of them.
I think because he showed that leadership, and everyone, liked that he was taking that he was owning that decision. I think at least more than half of them would have followed his.
And I
footsteps.
even though it was, even though it didn't, incite the town to a full-on rebellion, and even though we were able to calm, the revolt. It was very interesting, at least from Richard's, looking at Richard's character development, to see him not be hypocritical, because we've seen him make choices in the past where it was really contradictory or really selfish, like last week, calling dibs on Anna's crops and, basically selling them to the highest bidder when they weren't his to sell yet. That was pretty hypocritical, and like reconciling with Abe and then Anna being in. So we've seen a lot of kind of hypocrisy from this character before, and to see him finally set that aside and take responsibility, even though we want to see the town rebel, it was very interesting to see that progression anyway.
I have a question then that I would like to pose based on that topic that we just covered. When the tombstone is being unearthed, we see Abe standing towards the back and towards the side. He doesn't join in to anything that's happened. And we've kind of seen him in conflict this whole episode about digging up tombstones in general. And that was something he was against from the start and told his father the entire time. So do you think that this is going to play an influence in the relationship? Because I felt like at this point, Richard took a step forward in doing something that was unselfish, like you said, and took a step towards something that could potentially grow the relationship. But I feel like Abe maybe took a step back because he didn't like the decision that was being made.
Yeah, when Abe went to go talk to him, he thought that his father was going to stand up to Hewlett, or stand beside Hewlett, but make him convince Hewlett that not digging up the tombstones was a good idea, to make it to somehow talk Hewlett into thinking like it was his idea, in the same way that Abe had talked his father into doing it. When he walked over and started digging up Thomas's tombstone, that was the exact opposite of what Abe thought.
And that's what I guess I'm posing is because of that. Do you think that now this is going to cause more tension?
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
I mean, Abe didn't want to see his dad digging up his brother's grave like that.
Yeah.
And he just looked pissed off, like he was like, no. And the whole town was doing it, like he looked pretty upset.
He was one of the
me.
few people that didn't join in the doing that.
Because I think he saw, like, my dad just tricked this whole town into doing this. Like, holy crap.
I think he was disappointed. I mean, definitely disappointed that his dad didn't do what he thought he would do. Like, because, Abe gave him this advice and told him to stand up for himself and whatnot. But I think he still knows that his dad didn't want to do any of this. And in order to... The way Richard convinced everyone to do it was really... I don't know how to explain it.
It was manipulative.
It was manipulative, but it didn't cause anything to happen with the town. Like, everyone followed his lead. He was being an example, and he wasn't being a hypocrite. So
exactly,
it was manipulative.
It was manipulative, but heartn't
Exactly,
in a weird
and
way.
I think,
heartfelt manipulation.
Oh yes.
And I think Abe is conflicted with this, but again, he knows his dad didn't want to do it to begin with. I don't think he's going to. I don't want to say that there's going to be conflict between them. I'm going to answer it that way.
What it was he thought that he and his father were going to pull the wool over Hewlett's eyes, and instead his father pulled the wool over the town's eyes instead.
That's a lot of wool.
and that seemed like the plot. Like, as they were talking when they were in the study, the idea was, the old rule of politics, if you can't beat them, lead them, kind of thing, where he was going to take control of the town and lead them in this revolt. And basically convince Hewlett that this is a bad idea because they have the power of numbers.
Right.
Good old democracy. Getting the votes. But that totally backfired on Abe, I think, in the opinion of when the tombstone started getting dug up. And again, he didn't join in. And I think we saw Abe looking optimistic when his father was talking.
Yeah.
But then as he continued to talk and start telling the story, and he started quoting the Bible, talking about Abraham, sacrificing his son. Go on.
It's
burning in there. I see it.
When Richard was using that the story of Abraham and Isaac, to talk about, the need for sacrifice and putting the needs of others before yourself. That terrified me because he said, Abraham brought up Isaac to the mountain because it was God's will. I was sitting here cringing because it's like, oh my gosh, Abraham has a son in turn, and it's this story about how a father thinks he's going to have to sacrifice his son to appease God. And so I'm sitting here cringing going, no, I don't want anything, I don't want Abe to have to feel like he has to make that same sacrifice at some point. So it wasn't anything. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
He will have to turn against his family.
Oh.
Listen, puns are the lowest form of comedy. So
I love them.
Me too. They're funny. See,
back to your heartfelt speech about Abraham and Isaac, please.
But
it was getting too heartfelt.
But in that story, Abraham didn't end up having to sacrifice Isaac. So I hope that, I just hope that Abe doesn't feel like he has to be put into that position at one point. I hope that's not foreshadowing. But if it is foreshadowing, it's brilliant.
I mean, I don't see why it makes sense to me. He's going to have to choose between his family. We already talked about how he's going to have to choose between his father and the rebellion, and probably his family, because you think his wife's going to go along with, his spy ring and stuff?
Yeah. She can keep a secret.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to have to make a choice one day, and he might have to lose his son and wife.
I wonder if the Abraham and Isaac story was sort of, maybe if it's not foreshadowing, maybe it was just to illustrate that Richard was sacrificing his son's tombstone.
Willingness to sacrifice.
Yeah.
It represented a rift also between, by doing this, he might also be sacrificing his relationship with Abraham. So
that's true.
But yeah, I like what you pointed out, that it might not be foreshadowing, that it's actually just illustrating what he's doing.
I would like it to be foreshadowing. Some drama.
Well, he does, regardless, sacrifice the tombstone, and that's what's important because that basically unites the town. The part that I want to talk about now, did any of you see it coming at the end when Appleton and Major Hewlett are standing on the porch talking about the entire time that it wasn't even about the tombstones? The reason that he did this was about, controlling the hearts and minds of the town. The tombstones are totally irrelevant to anything that he has planned.
He doesn't care.
I was surprised at how much thought went into the decision to use the tombstone, because this entire episode, like we were talking about earlier, it seems like it's just sort of a stereotypical, redcoat decision, in terms of media. It just seems like, oh, I'm doing this because it's
power.
Yeah, it's power and everything like that. But he actually put a lot of thought into and reasoning into why this was a good decision, not only to incite the town to their cause, but also, to literally have a shield against the, rebels in the case of attack. So I was really surprised when he was talking to Appleton and explaining his reasoning. I was like, oh, because that's smart.
I was convinced, and again, after Richard said that Hewlett isn't very experienced, I was convinced that this was just kind of an empty decision. Maybe it is the best strategy to put the cannons there, but I thought that was it.
Well, they said he was inexperienced with war, right?
War, yeah.
So, but he seems very experienced with psychological warfare.
And the thing about that to consider, that could have gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Because this could be the reason they made the comment about not having that experience. This could have ended in a riot. These people could have killed every single one of those soldiers, and Hewlett could have been dead. So, I mean...
Well, there was a lot of psychoanalysis going on in this episode. We have Caleb and Ben, analyzing what they think General Scott is going to do. And then we have Richard and Abe sitting here and psychoanalyzing Hewlett. And then we have Hewlett psychoanalyzing Richard and the entire town.
And John Andre also psychoanalyzing as well.
Exactly. So we have an entire episode where people are psychoanalyzing one another.
Psychological warfare.
They're trying to figure out what they're going to do while they're figuring out what they're going to do.
Well, it's like sitting down and I know they were playing checkers earlier, but it's like sitting down and playing chess and figuring out where your opponent is going to put the piece.
Before they do it.
Right.
Based on the logical thought process.
Knowing your opponent's next move. Always being one step ahead.
Exactly.
And good. And that as I stutter out. That's a great thing for this show because we're getting a lot of really smart characters. Now, if we have characters that are analyzing what other characters are going to do, who's going to end up outsmarting who becomes the question. Yeah. Who's going to end up being the smartest person in the room? Because essentially, somebody has to lose.
Washington.
George Washington.
Spoiler alert.
You're my number one.
You're my number one guy.
Dollar bill kind of guy. Okay, do we have more we need to talk about?
We didn't talk about Mary.
Yeah.
And her gossip and her inability to keep secrets.
Well, we
glanced over it, but what we didn't mention is that this is the first episode where we've seen Mary and Abe be intimate in any way.
An attempt to be intimate.
Attempt, yeah.
But he still didn't want it.
Yeah, he didn't want it. She wanted a baby. She was like, oh.
Well, and it was nice because he had told that touching story, and that's what made her kind of turn on a little bit, based on because she talked about how Thomas was upfront about his family, and what's what made her want to be part of their family.
Yeah.
Because how high he talked about.
And she wanted her son to have a brother like he did.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, yeah, like that was her like reasoning, but I think you're right where like she was using that as a reason, but she really was just trying to reconnect with her husband because, you know, last week she found out about the other girl.
And she asked him about that.
Yeah, but she didn't come out and say, you know, if you're thinking of Anna.
She didn't say it. She
but
wanted him to say
she
it.
danced around it. And even when they were trying to be intimate, she's like, I can be anything you want to be, you want me to be.
Because of everything that she said and done, I think so far she's my least favorite character on the show. I mean, I know she wants all these good things for her life and for her husband and everything, but there's just so much that she's failing to do. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, my least favorite character is the baby. Man, that baby does nothing.
I like the baby better than Mary, I think. So.
I mean, it's nothing against the actress, but it's just, you know, Mary's character right now is just kind of...
I feel a lot of empathy for her in her situation, but yeah, it is kind of frustrating because you're like, there's a lot of potential with being, you know, Abe's wife, with being our protagonist, you know, with somebody who's so close, and it just kind of seems like they're using her as dramatic fodder instead of actually treating her like her own character where she can contribute, you know, to what? You guys are sniggering
We're
over
laughing
there.
at dramatic fodder.
Yes, I was laughing at dramatic fodder.
We love your word choice,
like,
actually.
That's awesome.
Hey, it makes perfect sense.
Well, like I said, it feels more like they're using her as a plot device than as a character who's really going to have an impact on the story.
Yeah, but we still see that she may... I talked about this last week, that something may happen with Anna, something with Aspiring. There could be a part for her yet.
Oh, totally.
Because... Obviously, we talked about the women and their influence.
Mm-hmm.
She could step up. But right now, there's nothing...
just a loose cannon.
With a loose mouth.
Does Abe know that she confronted Anna and
No.
falsely accused her of cheating on her husband?
As far as we know, unless there was a conversation that happened off screen,
Probably
no.
Yeah, nothing
would
that
know
they would
about
show
that.
That's something that's relevant that they would show.
So he doesn't know that she's someone who can... that she's someone who cannot control like what she's thinking and all that stuff.
Well, no, we saw her step it up last week when she did confront Anna. Like, I actually even though she was wrong and that it was misguided.
But she didn't confront her with something that was, you know, correct. It was just she just picks and picks and picks until, you know, something terrible happens, like the town ganging up on Richard. So.
Well, you know, we're going to find out, I think, in the coming weeks what happens with everybody. Because we've got more episodes left. But before we go into next week, let's talk about next week. Who has predictions?
Before we go into next week.
And now,
like that.
I did. I loved it.
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
It's like this creepy, scary noise. Joyce, what do you think's going to happen next week? Tell me some predictions.
I am going to disagree with your idea that Richard and Abe are going to butt heads. I think somewhere down the line in the season, Richard is going to side with Abe, or maybe he'll find out he's the spy and understand why. And I think him and Abe will come together.
Honestly,
Megan?
I think in the future it's just going to keep being this tennis match. They're going to keep going back and forth between them bonding and them being pulled apart. I genuinely think it's going to be like a pendulum.
There will be
like
back
that.
and forth, but I think Richard is going to see what like Hewlett and the Redcoats are doing and not want to be a part of that and associated with it anymore.
Okay. Well,
Dylan?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
keep going.
Real
Megan, go on.
quick, there was a bit in the preview that we were all shocked by. Abe kisses Anna, and then
Right.
she pushes him away. So I think a lot of confessions are going to be made next week.
That's what I was going to say. I think what we were talking about before about knowing if Anna or his wife knows about Anna and they talk about it, I think they're going to talk about it this time.
And we see
it's all
that-
going to come out.
We see Rogers is returning next week as
Yes.
well.
Yay.
So they showed him in the preview.
He's
And
awesome.
Washington's backside.
Maybe. Well, they showed a bunch of boats. I don't know if it was for sure Washington.
Maybe.
Well, no, I mean,
we're hoping.
It wasn't in the boats. It was they showed like they
Him
were like
walking.
Washington, and he was
Yeah,
like
he was walking.
We were so
All
excited
awesome,
at
like-
the prospect of seeing
Just his
General
desk.
Washington.
We got excited about it. So who
So
knows?
if we actually get to see him next week, I think we're all gonna lose it.
Yeah.
No show next week because we're going to be busy crying about Washington.
dollar bills, y'all.
You know what? I want to know where everyone can find more information about each and every single one of you. Lieutenant Megan Salinas.
You can find me on Twitter at TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. Special shout out for Kristen Carroll. You can find her on Twitter at KristenCarroll13. And you can also find me and her on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Captain Joyce on Tuesday nights.
Captain Joyce, that's you.
It's me. You guys can find me on Twitter at Joyce Ajouri, on Instagram at IRUOJA, and on the Tuesday Night Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast.
All right. Sergeant Dillon Chance.
Yay!
Battlefield
Right.
Commission today.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Dillon Chance or tonight on Cosmos.
Ooh, yeah. And as always, you can find me at RyanHooks92 on the Twitter, on the Instagram, on the Facebook, on the YouTube. I'm there all the time.
Everywhere.
Guys, thanks for tuning in to the Turn After Show. We will catch you next week when we get episode 5.
Cool.
See you later.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.